So a very warm welcome to all of you to today's Crafting Your Career session. Is my audio clear? Can one of the panelists just let me know if the audio is clear?
Yes, Shantala.
Thank you. So welcome to today's session on tooling up for an interview and exploring careers in science communication. You can also join today's session via YouTube or India Bioscience in the case that you have any problems via joining us via Zoom. The links for these are up on your screen and also will be shared in the chat box. And both of these, if you join via YouTube, that will be an interactive session as well. So if you have any problems here, do make sure that you join us via these other two alternatives. A little bit as to how you can join us and how you can participate in today's session. The first thing to do is, of course, to check your microphone and speaker settings that you can hear us clearly, just so you don't experience audio problems later during today's session. I'd like to draw your attention to the three icons at the bottom. So in the chat box, you will not be able to type into the chat box in today's session, but do keep an eye out on the chat box because that's how we will be sharing relevant links with you. The next is the raise hand icon. So do click on it if you wish to ask a question in person during today's session. And I will give a little bit more instructions regarding this before the Q&A session starts. And finally, there's a Q&A box. You can use this throughout the session as well to submit comments or questions. And here you have an option to do so anonymously. So I really hope that all of you use these options and do participate and interact in today's session extensively. A note before we move on, this knowledge broadcast system targets students and science professionals with an intent to increase the general awareness of good practices while navigating one's career path. In tooling up for an interview, steps such as preparing a CV, resume, cover letter. In today's session, we will not provide any models or templates, but will instead present good practices that will enable students to prepare what best fits their requirements. Importantly, this session also does not aim to tell students which career path is best suited for them, but hopes to facilitate and empower students in making well-informed choices for themselves. So with that, a little bit as to who's joining you in today's session. So from my colleagues from India Bioscience, Lakshmi, Shreya, and Smita are joining, and they have been spearheading the Crafting Your Careers initiative. For those of you joining on YouTube, Manjula is there with you and she'll be acting as a host and will be sharing the relevant links and collecting your questions. And I am Shantala and I'm joining you as a host in today's webinar. You will also be hearing from Shivani Shah and Siddharth Kankaria. You will hear more detailed introductions into these speakers as well as hear from them later in today's session. So now a short video about India Bioscience.
Science grows when it is taken beyond the laboratory into communities where learnings, ideas, and experiences are shared and new possibilities emerge. That's why, with the motto, Engaging Communities, Enabling Change, India Bioscience strives to foster the Indian life sciences community, providing a platform on which academia, government, industry, and the general public can engage at various levels. Workshops like Crafting Your Career, skill-building workshops, and grants awareness programs can help you navigate the life sciences ecosystem and plan the next steps in your career. And our podcast and webinar channels, India Biospeaks and India Biostreams, involving a diversity of topics and speakers, open doors to the areas of education, research, funding, policy, industry, and the wider scientific landscape. In pursuit of creating and curating excellent and relevant resources for life scientists in India, India Bioscience extensively partners with experts, agencies, and institutions, both national and international, bringing to you a vibrant community where new possibilities take shape and develop. Dive deeper into all this. Stay updated about jobs, grants, and events, the latest cutting-edge research in the field, the stalwarts at the helm of the field, and the lives of the people behind the research. Share stories, engage in the rich culture and community of the life sciences in India, and find out how you can help change the world. Explore India Bioscience. Stay engaged to enable change.
I hope that gave all of you some thoughts as to how you can continue to engage with us. So I see that actually a lot of, we have about 101 people joining us in today's session. So a warm welcome to all of you again, for those who have joined us on Zoom and those who are joining us on YouTube. Um, Now we'll move on to an audience poll, and this is for us to get to know a little bit about who you are, who's joining us as the audience in today's session. So I've just launched a poll. Those of you who are joining us on Zoom, you should have seen the poll pop up on your screens. Those of you who are joining on YouTube, I believe Manjula would have shared this, would have shared a Google form for this. So I'll let the poll run for about maybe 35-40 seconds. It's a rather simple poll. There are two questions. One question is, I am one of the following. Please select the one that best applies to you. And the second question is, what would be your top career choices as you move on to in the next step in your career? So again, select here. You can select everything that you feel that applies. So this is a multiple choice question. I will just let the poll run for a few more seconds so some more of you can fill it up. I do encourage everyone who's on Zoom to fill it up, because it really lets us know who is joining us in the audience today. Okay. So perfect. With that, I'm going to stop the poll and share the results. So again, those of you who are joining us on Zoom should be able to see the results on your screen. So for the first question, I'm one of the following. The highest proportion, 32% of you said you're master students. We also have a high proportion of bachelor students, PhD students, such students in general. We have some researchers. We have some other science professionals. So a warm welcome to all of you. I hope you find this session useful. For the second question as to what will be your top career choice as you move along in your career, 71% of you, an overwhelming majority, said you are thinking of being researchers. This is followed by 67% of you who said you are thinking of being science communicators. So I think for both groups, there is something that is of relevance and a learning in today's session. We also have 40% of you who want to be educators, 11% grants managers, some intellectual property advisors, core facility managers. The list is quite long. I'm not going to read through it, but it's really nice to see that there's such a diverse spread in what all of you are thinking to do. And so with that, welcome to our very interesting audience. And I am now going to hand it over to my colleague Smita. We are now moving on to the main topic of today's webinar. And I want to make a brief announcement before I hand it over to Smita. I do hope that all of you will stay for all of the speakers' presentations. They're all wonderful. And I also hope that you will stay beyond the speakers' presentations, because we do have an announcement that we want to make at the end of the webinar, which I think will be really relevant for all of you in the audience. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Smita.
Thank you. Thanks, Shantala. I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So once again, a very, very warm welcome to this Crafting Your Career online session 4. We have had 3 interesting sessions before, and I hope this one too will go as planned and would be relevant to all of you who are watching us live today. Okay. So with that, let me very quickly introduce the first part of this session, where my colleagues from IndiaBioscience, Lakshmi and Shreya, are going to talk about, one very, very key tool while you're preparing or crafting your career, which is tooling up for an interview. So Lakshmi is going to be talking about CVs and resumes, followed by Shreya, who would talk about careers, cover letters, and interviews, which is again really, really important. So I would not take long here. So over to Lakshmi's presentation. Just a quick note here that Lakshmi is based in Chennai, and because of the cyclone Nivar, There's been a lot of disruptions, and thereby she has recorded her video, and that's what we are going to play. So here you have Lakshmi's presentation.
So hello everybody, we will talk about CVs and resumes, which you know are very critical marketing tools in the job application process, which highlight why you are best suited for the position to which you're applying. So before we dive into CVs and resumes, perhaps we should spend some time in an exercise called dissecting the job ad in order to understand what is it, first of all, that the employer is looking for, and that will give us a good insight to prepare a CV or resume that's best suited for the job that you're applying for. So when you see a job ad, which is typically text heavy, a good first step would be to copy that text onto a word processor and highlight some key points in that job ad, and derive what we call certain keywords or key attributes. For example, in this job ad for a web coordinator, it requires that web coordinator liaises with the web developers, involves in upgradation of website, maintenance of website, and has some familiarity with the software that runs the website, which is CraftCMS, and also involves in discussions around website or the webinar or webinars and so on. So I have jotted down the key attribute that is sought here as technical expertise, familiarity with CraftCMS, setting up webinars, etc. Since it also involves liaising with multiple stakeholders, I jotted down communication skill as another key attribute. So likewise, from various other sections of the job ad, I have also jotted down different key attributes such as documentation, data analysis, social media networking and outreach, ability to be a team player, and also demonstrate flexibility to play as many roles as needed. And it's interestingly, this flexibility is not very well defined in the job ad itself, but through good networking skills, if you have access to reliable insider information, perhaps you'll get more insight into what these different roles could be, and maybe you can add a little bit more detail to tailor make your application and make it stand out from the rest, because you know something from inside information that is not very explicit in the job ad, which is in the public domain. So now, having done this exercise, you have a list of key attributes derived from the job ad. And as you can see, it's so much easier to look at this list rather than that text-heavy job ad with which we began. Now, for each of those key attributes, you can make a case for yourself to demonstrate that you possess these key attributes. So let's start with an example of this first one, which is technical expertise or familiarity with CraftCMS. So in making a case for yourself, I would like to share a technique called PAR. And this PAR is an acronym which stands for problem, action, and results. So in this PAR technique, what you would do is you would jog through your memory and draw in from your past experiences and ask yourself, what is the problem that I faced in the past that allowed me to demonstrate this key attribute? What is the action that I took in response to the problem? And what is the result of that action that I took? And how do I demonstrate impact? So for example, for this key attribute, technical expertise, the problem was to maintain website, create sections which were needed to support the activities of the postdoctoral community. The action that was taken as the webmaster for Postdoc Association was maintaining an event calendar, adding sections on curated grant listings for postdocs. The action that was also taken is training the next webmaster and created a student website for e-learning modules as a volunteer. Now the results of these actions are the core routines that were set are still in use by the Postdoc Association. The e-learning modules that was developed attracted about 200 students. So wherever you can quantify your results, then it becomes more impactful. And also in response to that specific software that needed to be learned, there was completed up and running with Craft 3, which is a course by Mijingo.com, and you could attach a certificate as an evidence. Now this is what we call as a PAR analysis, and this is a really good analysis to do for each of those key attributes, and this is a great preparation even for the interview process. But in order to add to the CV or the resume, you have to convert this analysis into succinct PAR statements. And in doing so, you want to start those statements with powerful and impactful action verbs. Examples for action verbs include solved, adapted, developed, clarified, compared, and so on. And in choosing these action verbs, I would recommend that you choose action verbs that indicate accomplishment. Example, developed, adapted, solved. These indicate accomplishment rather than those verbs that indicate just effort. Example, investigated or guided. All of these could or could not have led to accomplishments. So examples for PAR statements could be, developed new sections, created and maintained website content as the webmaster of the Postdoc Association, the core structure of which still remains used. You can see here that the problem and the action are sort of combined, and the result is also explicitly stated in a concise PAR statement. Another example for PAR statement is completed up and running with Craft 3, an online course by Mijingo.com, and you could attach a certificate. Now we will share a worksheet with you, and you can use this worksheet at any point of time that you're applying to a job, and when you look at it, when you have a job ad in front of you. So the first step, you can copy the job ad onto the worksheet. Step 2, you can derive the key attributes sought. Step 3, you can do the problem PAR analysis, problem action results, and then and step 4, convert the PAR analysis into succinct PAR statements that start with an action verb. And these PAR statements can go straight into your CVs and resumes, and which is what we're going to talk about right now. CV and resume, as you know, highlight your skills, your talents, and your experience that make you an excellent fit for the position for which you're applying. There are 2 very common misconceptions about CVs and resumes that we want to clear to begin with. CVs and resumes are not one and the same. They cannot be used interchangeably. And secondly, the purpose of both the CV and resume is actually to get you an interview to begin with, not the job itself. So how does CV and resume differ? The purpose distinguishes CVs and resumes. CVs are typically used in an academic setting. It enlists your ongoing academic and work history, and resume is a targeted marketing tool which is specific to the job to which you're applying for. CV is a continuously evolving document which includes a variety of experiences and accomplishments. Resume is succinct and it's relevant to the specific reader or to the position. CV can be virtually unlimited, pretty long, but it should remain focused. Resume is much shorter. It would typically be not more than 1 to 2 pages. CV is used when you're applying for faculty positions, research positions, fellowships, grants, or awards. Resume is used for everything else unless specifically requested otherwise. Both CV and resume are timeline documents, whereas CV could be chronological or reverse chronological. Resume is typically reverse chronological, which means it highlights your latest achievement first. Now, we don't typically recommend that you use templates while preparing your CV, but rather would recommend that you create a style for yourself and that best projects, showcases your accomplishments. But in doing so, it's good to keep certain standard guidelines in mind. So what would a typical resume contain? You should, of course, have your personal information, which is your name, contact information, etc. But we don't generally recommend that you include your photograph as a part of your resume or CV for that matter. You would also include, you would begin your CV with a section called Summary of Qualification, which highlights maybe top 3 points which make you the best fit highlight top 3 points which makes you the best fit for the job for the job. You would also have your education, the section for education, and you would list relevant skills that you possess pertinent to the job ad, and you could highlight your work experiences again in reverse chronological order, and you could populate each of these with the PAR statements that we talked about. Besides these, you could also have other sections. When we did the dissecting the job ad exercise, you derive certain key attributes. Those key attributes, each one of those key attributes could be even a section in your resume. And also each of those sections could be populated with PAR statements. And some of these sections could be service or leadership, mentoring experience or teaching experience, anything that makes sense to the job to which you're applying for. CVs, of course, could have more sections which are very academia-centric. And these could include grants funded, teaching or mentoring positions occupied. It could enlist it could have a complete list of your publications, service or leadership positions that you have taken, any professional affiliations or associations that you may have, and all the presentations that you've given in conferences and seminars, and patents that you may possess, and clinical certifications that you may have. And like we saw, each of these sections in either a CV or a resume could be populated with these PAR statements, and that now should give you a PAR-packed CV or a resume. Now, when you're applying for a lot of different jobs, instead of creating resumes for each of those jobs from scratch during the job hunt process, it would be very efficient to prepare what is called a master resume. And what this master resume is a master document with an exhaustive list of categories which are pre-populated with these PAR statements as entries. And when you have something like that in place, you could derive several targeted resumes which are responsive to the key attributes that you derived from the job ad. And you can just do that by featuring relevant sections from this master resume and create these different targeted resumes. So this is a general overview of CVs and resumes, and we will now talk about another important tool in the job application process, which is cover letters. Over to you, Shreya.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I'm just at the presentation. And hi, everyone. I'm going to keep the video off to conserve bandwidth, but I hope I'm audible to everyone. Can one of the panelists confirm? Okay, thanks, Shantala. So yeah, the cover letter is something that we tend to leave until the last moment or not take so seriously. But in fact, the cover letter forms one of the most important parts of your application. Well, the cover letter is something often the first thing in your application that your employer sees. So it forms the first impression. So a powerful cover letter makes a difference. It helps you stand out from the crowd. It solidly demonstrates your interest and your suitability for the job, and it adds a personal touch. So I'd like to recommend this article by Fiske that appeared on the Science Careers blog a few years back. We'll post a link in the chat window after this talk. In this article, he lays out 10 commandments of cover letter creation, and let's walk through them quickly. So start your letter by telling them why you are writing, like which position are you applying to, how did you learn about it. This is a very simple thing, but it often gets missed. Second, be specific in telling them how you fit this role. How does your experience or your skill set qualify you for this particular job? The best way to do this is using examples. So like Lakshmi just explained, if you have your part statements ready, they can be a great help here. Speaking the same language as the employer is important. So use the knowledge that you gain from the whole dissecting the job ad exercise you did and use the phrases that the employer used. Okay, we often receive letters that are addressed to respected sir or dear sir or madam or even to whomsoever it may concern. And this creates a very impersonal and not so great impression. So take the time out to research and find out the name of the person you're writing to and try to address the letter to them. Also, there are some obvious questions that may arise in the mind of someone who's going through your application. Let's say you are new to a completely different field. Maybe you have had a long career break, or maybe let's say you are a PhD applying a position that doesn't require a PhD. It may be helpful to address these questions upfront. Keep it short, no more than a page, or 3 paragraphs are more than enough. Also, it's good to focus on the positives. For example, it may not be a great idea to say that you absolutely hate your current job and that's why you're looking for a new position. Also, try to avoid cliches or phrases that everyone would use. Like everyone is a hardworking, dedicated, sincere individual who's a quick learner, ready to give their best. Right? So something different, something that speaks of who you are as a person. Now, not every job requires a cover letter. For example, there might be cases where there are a large number of applications being screened electronically. Some may mention this explicitly in the job application, so it might be helpful to try and find this out beforehand. But I would say that after doing this research, if you are in doubt, send a cover letter. Doesn't hurt. So in the notes that we will share with you via the chat window after this presentation, there will be examples of both good and not so good cover letters. So try to go through these, assess them for yourself, and try to understand where the writer is coming from and how maybe you can do better. Okay, moving on. So let's say you have done all of this, sent in your application, you have received an interview call. So what do you do next? How do you prepare? So to answer this, let's start by trying to think from the point of view of the employer. Why is an interview necessary at all? I mean, after all, it requires quite a bit of time investment. It requires expenditure on the part of the employer. And anyway, they already have your resume. They already know about you. So why go into all this trouble of doing an interview? Well, there are 3 answers to this question. The interview lets the employer assess 3 things. 1, can you do the job? Do you have the ability? Even if you can do the job, will you do the job? Do you have the motivation? And finally, would you fit the culture of the workplace? So as a candidate, your job is to demonstrate that the answer to all 3 questions is yes, that you have the necessary skills and qualifications, that you are interested and motivated, and that your values match the values of the workplace. Sometimes there will be a single interview with a panel of experts that will try to assess all 3 factors. And at other times, there would be separate interviews, a technical interview and a personal interview. The personal interview is also sometimes called an HR interview if you are applying for an industry position. So how do you prepare? How can you prepare yourself for a technical interview? First, it's very important, even if you are very knowledgeable, it's important to research the specific position you are applying to and the skills or qualifications or specialized knowledge that that position requires, and to focus on those. At the same time, you should brush up on basic concepts in your field of expertise. Try to apply them to situations that require problem solving. Sometimes interviews include presentations, and even otherwise, you should always be ready to present your past research or techniques. Be confident in your knowledge. It always makes a question. But if you are guessing, if you don't know the answer and you are making an educated guess, tell the interviewer, tell them that you are guessing. For the personal interview, there are certain questions that always get asked, and it's difficult to come up with an answer to them on the fly. So it's good to prepare them beforehand. So these are questions like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Tell us about yourself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why should we hire you? Things like that. Also, keep your focus on what you can do for the organization rather than how this job would benefit you. Always be honest, but stick to the point. Don't digress or overshare. And again, even if you're frustrated or you hate your current boss, it's not a good idea to bring it up during the job interview. Also, it's good to follow some good practices or interview etiquette that helps demonstrate that you are a professional, right? For example, even before the interview, if a response is required, if there are formalities or forms to be filled, you should do these promptly. Similarly, during the interview, arrive on time, dress professionally, switch off your cell phone or put it on silent. When you meet the interviewers, look them in the eye, greet them, be friendly, be polite, and thank them once the interview is over. Also, once it's all over, even if you don't get selected, don't burn these bridges. Send a thank you note, ask for feedback, ask how to improve your application for next time in case there's a next time. It never hurts and it can sometimes really help. Also, remember that an interview is not an interrogation. It's a conversation. It's a two-way street. You are also assessing the company or the organization to see if it's a good fit. So very often at the end of the interview, you'll be given a chance to ask questions, and you can use this to find out more about the organization or about things that may not have been mentioned in the job ad, like day-to-day responsibilities, about career progression, next steps in the application process. You could even ask that if you are selected, what would be your next step? How would you be evaluated? Things like that. And finally, it has been like weeks since you have had your interview, or you have one way or the other. It's always okay to send a follow-up email, a polite email, or if you're not receiving answers to your emails, you can call them up. You can ask where your application is at, if there's anything further you can do. So don't be afraid to follow up. So that wraps up this section, and I think we might have time for just a few questions. So I'll stop my screen share.
I am audible back, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Shreya, for that overview, and thanks, Lakshmi, for the presentation. Maybe we'll very quickly take just 2 questions, and the remaining questions we will make sure that we reply either towards the end or by email. So there's a question by Zile which says that what is the difference between motivation letter and cover letter? Shreya, would you want to take that up?
Yeah. So a motivation letter, like a statement of purpose, it's often something that is asked for separately as part of your application. Your cover letter basically accompanies your application as something that sort of ties everything together. Whereas a motivation letter or an SOP usually has one purpose, and that is to demonstrate your suitability for your reason for applying for the job, basically. Why, how does your background or your future goals? But again, it's also very dependent on the organization of where you are applying, because every job has its own requirements, and very often it will be spelled out clearly in the job ad about what exactly is expected of each item. And also, you can always get in touch with the people you are applying to. That's also an option. If you are in doubt, try to get in touch with the hiring manager or somebody who is there.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
yeah,
One more
if
question.
that answers your question, Zile.
Okay, maybe Shreya, I'll just take one more question before I move on. Anusha K is asking that she has a master's in bioscience and then moved to the education field. But her target, the goal is to get into research field. So she wants to know whether she should include her educational experience in her CV.
Okay. So again, it also matters how you're presenting your experience. For example, we often have people applying for, say, jobs in science communication with a pure academic CV, and that's not a good option. But you can take that same experience, those same publications, that same thing, but reframe it in a way that brings across your suitability. So think about, like, if you are coming from a research background and moving into education, say, or it might be the other way around, think about which aspects of your research career are best translatable to the new career you're applying to. And transferable skills, we have discussed it before. So maybe during your research experience, you acted as a TA somewhere, or you had experience in complex topics and conveying it in a simple manner to a big audience. And all of those are things that can come in handy. So when you are preparing a CV or your resume, think about its of bar statements and how you want these, how you want to frame your sentences to leverage that experience.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thanks a lot.
I
Thanks a
think my
lot, Shreya.
internet froze.
Yeah, I guess there is some connectivity issue. To all the other folks who have asked questions, I guess we have made a note of these questions and we will make sure that we reply to these questions. So now let's move on to the section 2 of today's session, where we are going to explore careers of Shivani and Siddharth in the field of science communication. So let me very quickly introduce Shivani. Shivani obtained, well, before maybe I introduce, I would also want to say that I share my alma mater with both the speakers of today's session. That's interesting. So Shivani obtained her bachelor's degree from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, with an honors in microbiology and biochemistry, followed by a master's from MS University, Baroda, in biochemistry. She did her doctoral degree from Department of Microbiology and Immunology, again in Loyola College, Chicago, USA, followed by 2 postdoctoral stints again in USA. And then she came back to India. And I guess following her passion, she joined Cactus Communication as a publication manager with the publication support service team, where she's supported n number of authors in their publication journey, which is quite, I'm sure, must have been very enriching. She has now been with Editage for over 8 years, and currently she holds the position of senior managing editor with the Impact Science team. You just saw the product of Impact Science team at the very beginning when we played the IBS video. In her current role, she uses her strong scientific background and language skills to help authors, journal societies, and publishers, as well as academic and non-academic institutions, to communicate science very effectively and promote their research and products beyond publication. So over to you, Shivani.
Shivani, maybe you could unmute yourself and turn on your video. Shivani?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
I'll just start my video. I'm just trying to figure this out. All right. Guys, can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Smita, for that lovely introduction. Yeah, I've had a long career journey, I feel, at this point, and I feel very ancient when I hear all my, long years of studying and getting PhD and postdoc. But I guess today is what I'm going to share that story with you. But before that, I would like to thank India Bioscience for taking this initiative. I think it's a very, very needed, required initiative to help the next generation of researchers and scientists. There's so many different options now, career-wise, networking-wise. There's so many new things in the field that this is indeed a great opportunity for Indian scientists, the new minds, to really to witness. So, with that, I'll start with my journey. Um, it's been an interesting long journey, but it all started with a question mark where, growing up, there were three paths that I could opt for. I wanted to do science, but then what, right? So I could do engineering, I could do um, medicine, I could do a bachelor's, right? So typically when I was growing up, the thought was that if you can't become an engineer or can't become a doctor and all else fails, you do bachelor's. And today it's not so. People actually choose bachelor's, they choose this to get somewhere, to get where they want to. And I think all of you all have probably been through the bachelor's and are going through the master's process currently. So I knew I wanted what I didn't want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time. I knew I didn't want to become a doctor. I grew up, my entire family they're all doctors. And I just knew that I didn't want to become another doctor. So I knew I also didn't want to do maths. Maths was fun, but it wasn't my passion. And so what became my default career path was a bachelor's degree in some form of biology. And again, at that time, microbiology was super cool, or I thought it was super cool. And I started my journey from the Department of Microbiology, St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. Right? Now, what next? What happens after you get a microbiology degree, a bachelor's degree? Well, you do masters. And that's pretty much what I wanted to do. But I chose to do it in biochemistry because I had an opportunity to get a double major. So I graduated with both microbiology and biochemistry for my bachelor's. And talking to my seniors, I realized that Bombay perhaps isn't the right place. And if I'm really keen and interested, then I should get, aim at least for getting into MSU Baroda. Now, I didn't study, to be honest. I wasn't very keen on leaving Mumbai. I was quite happy with what I would have got had I stayed back in Mumbai. And it was a fun adventure to go take that entrance test. And a bunch of my friends and me, we took the train from Mumbai and said, okay, we'll just have fun and come back. And when I saw the campus, I really fell in love with it. Maybe I should have shared pictures. Some of you all know, some of you all are from there. But after coming from Mumbai and after living in Worli where there's no open space, this campus was just beautiful. And immediately I was like, okay, maybe I should try harder. But the entrance test was now, so I really didn't have much time to change anything. But I got through, and I think it was a big feat for me at that point because I got what I wanted. And I spent 2 years in Baroda. I learned loads. I enjoyed science, everything. But at the end of it, I didn't want to do research. I wanted to work. I wanted to make money. And I'm sure many of you all are probably in that same boat where you've done a little bit of, you've done your bachelor's, you've done your master's, and you're probably ready to start earning at this point. So I was very keen on getting a job. and I went back to Mumbai. And I was lucky to have a summer stint with Hindustan Lever. And there I kind of got to do these really fun projects in immunology. And I loved it. It was interesting, fun, and I knew that if I ever wanted to pursue research, it would be immunology. And after my internship, I still wanted to work. So I managed to get a job at KEM Hospital, and it was clinical work. And they wanted me to help set up a PCR system for some clinical samples. And it was fun. I didn't make much money because it was after my master's. It was a government thing, and there was hardly any money for me. But I realized one thing. I said, if I want to climb up, in this ladder, in this any kind of ladder, any ladder, I need to get my PhD. I need to have those credentials, that experience, and that knowledge. Master's isn't enough, right? So even though I wanted to stop after my master's and start working, what I landed up doing is going for a PhD. And here, I was, again, very lucky. I got into a really good program, an immunology program, and I spent 6 years getting my PhD. And as track would have it, again, I knew research really isn't for me. I think I've always known that. But I enjoyed research, and science was definitely, I was passionate about it. So I said, okay, now default pathway again. Let's just get that, do the postdoc, do the next steps, and we'll figure it out on the way. So yeah, I did not one, but I did 2 postdocs. And by this time, I was married, I had a daughter, and before she was old enough to say, hey, I don't want to move back to India, I want to live here. Before she got to that stage, pretty much we packed our bags and came back to India, because that was always something that both me and my husband wanted to do. We wanted to come back to India. So here we are back in India, and I still don't know what I want to do. I still don't know where I'm going next or what India has to offer. I'm just back here. That's it. And so I started experimenting. I started looking around, talking to people, networking, and I knew I didn't want to do academia. So at least that was out of the picture for me. I knew I wanted to focus on some kind of industry or something different, but I didn't know what that different could be. So I scoped around, I looked at industry jobs, and again, I realized it wasn't what I was looking for. And I was just in this dilemma, not knowing what to do, kind of frustrated, very few options that I could think of that would, interest me. And I happened to talk to one of my colleagues from, one of my classmates from MSU. And he had just joined an editing firm as an editor. And he's like, Shivani, I know you. You're going to love this because it's engaging, it's fun, the culture is really cool. You should just try it out. It's totally you. So I said, okay, what's the harm? Let's just try it out. I said, editing, I didn't really like to write. I never enjoyed writing, and editing really, can I really sustain? But I said, okay, fine, we'll just try it out. So I applied to Cactus. I got through, I cleared a whole bunch of interviews. And then at the interview, I was asked whether I can really, move from bench to desk. Like, am I really going to like that? And I had no idea. I really didn't have an idea. I just went with it. I said, yeah, fine. I don't know how it's going to be, but it sounds exciting. Let me just try it out. And what I got a publication manager role. I didn't get that editor position. Instead, I got a publication manager role. And I am so grateful for that, because I may or may not have survived as an editor, but the publication manager role, basically it allowed me to, communicate with my clients. So I'm very social, and that really helped, because I could communicate with my clients. I had a goal of getting their manuscripts published, but how I got there was all about doing the right things, like knowing what I'm doing. And at the end, getting that manuscript published, but also pleasing the client along the way. So I learned a lot of things. I enjoyed every moment of it. But 7 years later, I thought I needed some change. I wanted to do something different. This was, getting monotonous. And change is something that many of us frown from, but many of us thrive on. So at the end of 7 years, I was ready. I was ready to move on. And I got this opportunity to move to Science Communication, which is a new and upcoming team at Cactus Communications. And I pretty much jumped into that role. It was a science communicator role that I applied for. And instead I got the, senior managing editor. And again, this is where I am so thrilled to be. I enjoy my work. I enjoy what I do. And I'm glad for all the years where I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I've come to the right place today. So you may say, what is science communication and why do you think it's even important? Why are you happy doing it? So here's a bit, okay? Take a look. What do you think? Do you think science writing can be fun? Does it have to be serious and annoying and difficult to understand? No, it doesn't. I mean, there are several ways to write a paper, and you would do well if you wrote it well, right? But in addition to just writing your science paper, your research, your studies into an academic paper, you have to come to terms with it, right? That's written in a certain tone, in a certain manner. But there's so many different ways to get the word out. So to make it more interesting, you have to go one step ahead. Not everything can be interesting just by reading that academic paper. And at the same time, it's not just about, making science fun. It's also about getting it right. So you have to know how to write it. You can't just write something, miss out on your punctuation, your grammar, whatever. All those things are also super critical, right? So all of these really encompass in its way science communication. And so just in a nutshell, science communication has all these different parts, right? So you have, I'll start with academic writing. That's primary. As a researcher, as a scientist, you will have to publish your work. You will have to get it out. And writing your manuscript becomes one of those key things. You'll have to write your dissertation, your thesis. At whatever stage you are, writing is important. And writing well is important, right? Other than academic writing, this is something that most of you all have probably done or are doing in the process, or probably even kind of worried about doing because it's coming up for you, right? But these are all almost mandatory in science. It's one of the stepping stones to moving ahead in your careers, whatever your career may be. Another part of science communication is medical writing. So medical writing, like academic writing, it involves a lot of writing, but it's not just papers and it's not just research studies. It's also regulatory affairs, and it's also clinical trials, and all of these that are related to the pharma industry, those kind of fall under medical writing. And then you have editing. So that's something I already mentioned. Without editing, nothing can really go forward. Nothing is going to make sense. Any piece of work that you write, anything that you do, you've got to figure out, writing well, then editing it out. And the last but not the least is science promotion, because science promotion is key to everything that you've done. It's getting your research out to a wider audience. It's really bringing your work into the limelight. There's science journalism, but that's something different, and I will just skip it for now. So how do you simplify your research? Well, you've got to break it down. You've got to break down your manuscript into easy to understand formats. So the way we approach most of our manuscripts when we are trying to simplify it is that we write lay summaries, or we write press notes, We create visual formats that include infographics and videos, and audio formats like podcasts. So there's multiple ways in which to break down your research and just make it more accessible. That's the goal, how to make it more accessible. So a lay summary is simply, a short version of your article, something that almost everybody across can understand. A press note is written in a different tone. It's the same research, but just in a different tone where it's more newsy and more exciting. And then infographics, these are visual formats. And you can see here, these are just some samples. You'll see that there's just different options, different styles that you can take to showcase all different kinds of fields, right? So it's not just a single field you're talking about. It's all possible fields that we work with, from medicine to chemistry to physics. Everything and anything under the sun can be simplified in this manner. I don't have time to share a video with you guys, but you've already seen one. The one where India Bioscience showcases what they are. That video has been created by us, and it was a delight to work on that video. So basically, each day is different. Each day has different challenges, and that's really the essence of what I love about my job. I get to do. I know I'm connected with science. Everything is creative. Everything is fun and different and engaging. And of course, the last bit is that it's extremely satisfying because I feel good. I feel I've contributed to society. And yeah, is it hard? Yes, it is, but it's totally worth it. Like it's fun, all right? And how can you get there? How can you be where I am today? Well, you read a lot, you watch a lot, you write regularly, and experience is really your best bet. So the more you do, the more familiar you are, and the faster you get there. There are some simple writing courses you can do. There's Udemy and Coursera, and there's different opportunities out there that are currently available. In addition, I recently came across an institute. It's a CSIR institute, National Institute of Science Communication and Information Resources. This is in New Delhi. And that might be another opportunity for you to consider if you want to have a formal training in science communication. I'd like to leave you with some thoughts. And one of the first thing is, whether you stay in research, whether you think of science communication as a career, you have to remember that it's really important that you talk about your science. And no matter what role you are in, science communication is essential. Okay? And that's how you're going to get your word out. And this is something that I'm going to end my talk with. In my time, we had reached stage 2 of this evolution. So in science, we started with publishing, and then it became publish or perish. But after that, it was publish in high impact journals or perish. And then it wasn't just enough to now publish in high impact journals. You also had to frequently publish in high impact journals. But today we have one more step where you not only frequently publish in high impact journals, but you also have to communicate that story out. And there are different social media platforms so you can reach out and put your word out, create visuals, write about your work, and get your story out. So yeah, that's pretty much my tale. And here my email. In case you have any questions later on, you can always reach out to me. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivani. That was a really, really interesting talk. So I guess we'll take the questions post Siddharth's talk. So let me very quickly introduce Siddharth Kankaria. He is a science communication practitioner with a background in biology. He studied at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and he has a degree in science communication from University of Edinburgh. Currently, he works as the Science Communication and Outreach Manager at the Simon Center at National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore. And in his spare time, he runs this very interesting club called SciComm SciClub, a forum for engaging with the science of science communication. Siddharth is keenly interested in facilitating dialogues for bridging the gap between science communication research and practice, developing evidence based science communication practices. Mostly in the Indian context, and formulating policy frameworks for enabling science communication ecosystems. So, with that, Siddharth, over to you, and we look forward to hearing your journey in detail. Siddharth?
Yes. Can you see me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry. So sharing the screen sort of temporarily takes away the option to switch on. Yes. All right. Can you see my slides?
Yes, perfect.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Smita, for that wonderful introduction, and to India Bioscience for inviting me here. I'm very, very delighted to be here. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my personal journey in science communication. The reason I'm choosing to share sort of my journey and not just talk about science communication in India is because I felt it would be useful for people to kind of see the kind of transitions that I've made and the considerations that have gone into each step of my journey. And so I thought people would be able to relate to that. So I'm choosing to share a little bit about my personal journey and then talk a little bit about science communication in India. Right. Uh, right. So before I begin, I sort of want to talk about a false dichotomy. And so what is this false dichotomy between? So this false dichotomy is between science and art. So in school, we're often asked when we are in high school, when we are moving from 10th to 11th standard, we're often asked to choose between science or commerce or humanities or art. And so we sort of keep, choosing one subject over the other as we move from bachelor's to master's to PhD. And we keep specializing more and more specific subjects. And as a consequence of that, what happens is that we sometimes lose the bigger picture and we forget to sometimes, or we sort of lag behind in making connections between different kinds of things that we're doing, right? So before I begin my presentation and talk about my journey, I just wanted to sort of share this insight that this dichotomy between science and humanities or science and commerce or science and social sciences is actually a false dichotomy, which is predominantly created for the ease of administrative purposes, right? And we shouldn't really, let our curiosity be also sort of broken down into these deep compartmentalizations of science and art. And so the webinar today by India Bioscience is itself testament to the fact that you can actually combine your interest in science and art and social sciences and, sort of bring them together and be able to pursue a career in that, right? And so Shivani and me, myself, are examples of people who are sort of trying to do this. And so it is possible to do it, and it is very, very easy to do it, right? So I wanted to sort of break apart this dichotomy before I begin talking about myself. If you're interested in reading more about such dichotomies, a book called The Two Cultures by C.P. Snow and another one called The Three Cultures by Jerome Kagan are actually great reading for anybody who's interested in reading more. I won't really talk about this much more, but I'll come back to this towards the end of my presentation, right? Now, so let me talk about a little bit about my journey, right? So I was myself a victim of, someone who thought that I had to choose between science and humanities. So I was really, really interested in both humanities and science when I was in school. But somehow my love for biology sort of pushed me towards choosing biology. And at every step of my career, I kept choosing biology or science and progressively, right? Until I reached a point where I decided that I needed to take a step back and think what I was doing, right? So I'll talk a little bit more about that. So, right. So my academic journey begins at ISC Bangalore, and Smita is also an alumnus of the same institution. So I joined the undergraduate program at ISC Bangalore, and ISC for me was sort of a mixed emotions, so to speak. I learned a lot about the scientific culture. I really, really was able to build a very strong foundation in the natural sciences, not just in biology, which was my major, but also other fields of sciences, because the program there was quite multidisciplinary in its nature. Right. So ISC, on one hand, gave me a very strong foundation in the sciences and a deep understanding of the scientific culture. But on the other hand, I also sort of met a lot of friends, a lot of very, very intellectual and amazing people, and I really grew as a person, right? But on the other hand, ISC was also an eye opener for me because I realized what the research culture is like And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I realized that it wasn't probably the perfect fit for me. And I suppose that a lot of you also would be at an interface or at a transition in your life where you're sort of questioning whether research is the right option for you, which is probably why you're here today attending this webinar, right? So ISC also made me realize that I was probably not best cut out for a career in academia or research, especially wet biology that I was kind of studying rigorously there. And it also made me realize that it also was sort of a rat race because there was so much to do. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I was working 15, 16 hours in the lab. I was attending courses. I was giving competitive exams. I was applying to multiple universities for PhD positions, and I was writing SOPs and all of that all simultaneously. And so basically I did not get enough time to really take a step back and think about what I was doing, whether I wanted to do this or not, and whether this was the best course of path that I wanted to take in terms of my career, right? So ISC was sort of a mad rush for me. And it's only when I came out of ISC that I realized that maybe I needed to take a step back and see what I was doing. So that was ISC for me. After I moved out of ISC, I had already received an admission offer from a master's program in Europe, which allowed me to sort of study in 4 different universities in 4 different semesters, and I had got a scholarship, and all of it seemed really, really nice, and I was actually prepared to go and pursue it. But between after I graduated from ISC and before I had to go and pursue that master's in Europe, there was a period of 3 months in which I had nothing to do. And so in those 3 months, there was this science journalism workshop at NCBS, which happened, and I applied for it and I got in. And that's also the place where I met Shreya and many other friends and colleagues that you see in this picture right now. So I attended this workshop and I learned a lot more about science journalism. And I was really able to interact with a lot of people who were in a similar phase in life like me and were of similar thoughts like me. And interacting with them and sort of, getting a taste of what science journalism is really sort of made me much more confident in terms of, exploring other avenues in terms of my career, right? So once the course was over, I was very happy. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. But most importantly, I got the confidence to sort of think about other alternative careers that I could pursue instead of a career in academia or research, right? So once the workshop got over, I still had 2.5 months at home. So I came back to my parents' place. I stayed at home, and I basically decided that I'm not going to go and pursue that master's, and I'm instead going to take a leave for the year. I'm going to take a gap year or a sabbatical, and sort of explore if science journalism could be a viable career for me. At that point of time, it was very confusing. I was not sure whether I wanted to do this on a permanent or a more long-term basis. And I also didn't know whether it was a viable career opportunity, whether I could earn enough to sort of make a comfortable living, right? So although that was not a primary concern for me, but it still was something that I was not sure about. So I thought, let me take a year off. I can always pursue a master's after a year. And a year after the hectic 4 years at ISC seemed like a good idea. So I decided that I'll take a year off. And in that 1 year off, the first 2 or 3 months, I basically started networking with a lot of people on LinkedIn and Twitter and all these social media networking sites, right? And so I got to learn a lot more about science communication in India. I found a lot of people, a lot of potential positions that I could apply to, and I started applying. I was not scared of picking up the phone and talking to people, and so I spoke to a lot of people, and I actually got 4 job offers in a span of 2 or 3 months after I graduated. And so then I decided that one of the job offers was in Mumbai, the other 3 were in Bangalore. So I decided that I'm going to come back to Bangalore and meet these people, the potential employers that I had. And I thought I'll sort of get a sense of what I wanted to do. And so I came back to Bangalore for a week. And in that 1 week, I actually decided where I wanted to, start working. And I started working also. So after that 1 week of, meeting people in Bangalore, I sort of decided to join Research Matters, which is a science media outlet run by Gubi Labs. And so I joined this small company as their content editor. And in that particular job, I was asked to sort of, read a lot of science stories that they were publishing, create multimedia, content in terms of podcasts and videos and infographics and photographs and illustrations, and social media networking posts basically on a regular basis. So I got to do a lot of things. Every day was very different. I sort of did something different every day. I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of scientists, and a lot of other science communicators. I got to network a lot, and the people I worked with were really fun. I really had an amazing time there. And so I worked at Research Matters for about 16, 17 months. And by the end of my time there, I was sort of much more confident about pursuing a career in science communication. Like the initial doubts that I had, that I was not sure whether science communication could be a viable career, I sort of was much more confident about pursuing a career in science communication by the end of my term at Research Matters. And I also was pretty sure that I did not want to pursue a career in research, which I was still sort of confused about when I had just graduated. Right. So after a year of working at Research Matters, I realized that I needed to consolidate my practical learnings in terms of being a science communicator with some more theoretical knowledge. Right. So I decided that I wanted to do a master's course, a one-year master's in science communication, and so I applied to a bunch of universities in UK. And by the end of 1 year at Research Matters, I actually got admission in 4 places in the UK. After that, I realized that the University of Edinburgh had an amazing master's program, and I decided to join them. The University of Edinburgh, I mean, I predominantly applied to courses in the UK because the UK was pretty mature in terms of the science communication ecosystem and the landscape there. And science communication had been, being studied and taught and pursued on a much more serious academic level for the last 3 decades in the UK, which is why I wanted to go to the UK. And so out of the UK, the 4 universities that I applied to, I really liked the program at the University of Edinburgh. And so I decided to join University of Edinburgh. And there I could learn a lot more theoretical aspects of science communication, which kind of made a lot more sense because I had some experience of working as a science communication practitioner in India. And so I studied a lot of things ranging from science communication models to public engagement theory to citizen science to science art interfaces to science policy, science education, knowledge brokering, dialogue and deliberation, loads of things. But most importantly, apart from studying all these courses, I also did a lot of volunteering and sort of part-time jobs there. Right. So I did a lot of stuff, but I'll share 4 such examples with you just to give you a sense of how each of these experiences sort of shaped my understanding of science communication as a field, not just a field of practice, but also a field of research. Right. So the first example, the first work experience I had was at the Edinburgh International Science Festival. I was actually a science communicator at the festival where I was running this workshop called Mini Mechanics. And in this workshop, basically, the workshop was only meant for 8 to 16-year-olds. So they were quite young kids. And it's quite different when you're trying to communicate science to small children, especially 8 to 10-year-olds, as opposed to when you're doing it for adults, right? So in this festival, we sort of had a workshop called Mini Mechanics where we sort of cut open a tractor engine and we showed the Carnot cycle inside the tractor engine, and we could actually see the Carnot cycle happening. And then we asked the small kids to sort of break open a lawnmower engine, which is a much smaller engine, and they had to do a lot of deconstruction based activities. So it was really fun. It was quite hectic because the whole day from morning 9 till evening 7 we were sort of really busy, and it was really tiring, but it was an amazing opportunity. And the festival runs for an entire month, so for an entire month every day I did this, and it was quite a great learning experience. The next work experience I had was in a global sort of international science engagement initiative called Pint of Science, which basically gets a lot of scientists to come to a pub, have a drink, and explain their science to people who are there in a very informal setting. Now, so I was responsible with 2 of my classmates for organizing the inaugural event of Pint of Science at Edinburgh, which was Creative Reactions. So Creative Reactions was basically a science art exhibition where we got a lot of scientists and artists to come together, create science art together. Then we exhibited these things. We also got a lot of science art pieces from lots of museums and other places. And we also had a lot of games and activities and a panel discussion on how science art is created, right? So organizing this event took us about 3 or 4 months, and I really also had a lot of learning experiences while organizing this event. The next event was a formal work placement at an organization called Eurostem Cell. So this Eurostem Cell was an organization which basically was a collection of universities who were working on stem cell research and who wanted to sort of publicize or inform patients, doctors, nurses, and the general public much more about what stem cells are, what stem cell therapies are, and how do you choose between what's an effective or a bogus stem cell therapy, right? Now, as Eurostem Cell, I created a lot of resources. I created videography guides. I created a lot of fact sheets. I also made films and short videos. I sort of organized a lot of events. So this was a much more formal and very academic kind of work experience. So this was quite different from the first 2 work experiences that I shared. And so this also kind of made me realize that, you really need to be able to understand your audiences when you're trying to communicate your science. You really need to be able to adapt your approaches And most importantly, you need to be able to understand what is your audience's motivation to engage with you, right? So every single work experience that I've shared with you, the audience was different, their age was different, their backgrounds were different, and therefore our science communication approaches also needed to be different. So this is what I learned at this place specifically. The last work experience that I wanted to share with you is an organization called Proteus. Now, this was an engineering sort of work experience, and they had created a biomedical engineering application, which was basically a sort of scope which goes inside your lung and can detect different kinds of bacterial infections. Now, we had to explain this to kids who were about 8 to 16 again. And so we created this activity in which you could see thermocol balls in that long tube, and we played a music or a sound sort of wave, and you could see the thermocol balls sort of moving. And with this, you actually had to play an activity where you had to, sort of eliminate which microbe it was. So whether it was an E. coli, whether it was a salmonella or something. So I won't go into the details of the activity, but this was something we sort of created a game, and we presented this game at the British Science Week and the Glasgow Science Center. This was also a very different kind of work experience. So all of these work experiences were sort of very important for me to sort of get a much clearer understanding of how do you understand science communication in theory, and how do you apply it, and how do you sort of bridge both of these things together. So after I finished my master's in the UK, I could have worked in the UK, which I did consider at some point of time, but I really felt like, there were a lot of science communicators in the UK, and I could use my knowledge and my expertise and my experiences much more productively and much more nicely if I came back to India. And by that time, India had a much more thriving science communication landscape, and science communication was starting to really become like an in topic. So I really thought that if I come back to India, I would be able to contribute more meaningfully, which is why I decided to come back to India, and I joined the Simon Center at the National Center for Biological Sciences, which is where I currently work. And the Simon Center was sort of probably the most important work experience I've had so far, partly because of the things that I've learned here in terms of my work experience. I was able to apply a lot of my theoretical knowledge, which I had acquired in the UK, to try and solve problems in the Indian context. And this gave rise to a lot of insights and reflections about how science communication in India is very different from the UK, right? And this also made me realize that the specific challenges that we have in terms of engaging people with science in India are very, very different and require a very different approach. And I spoke a little bit about it at a conference last year in Manchester also. But the other reason why Simon Center at NCBS was sort of a very important work experience for me was because I met an incredible diversity of people, including the people at IndiaBioscience, by the way. So I'm able to interact with a lot of people, not just scientists and graduate students, but also scientists and artists and theater people and people who are science admin people or grants managers. So I'm able to meet a very, very incredible diversity of people. I'm able to network with them, and that has really led to a lot of insights and learnings for me as a science communication practitioner. Right. So a little bit more about my work at the Simon Center. At Simon Center, I am basically responsible for mostly organizing a lot of events. So I organize a lot of courses and workshops and symposiums and colloquias and lots of talks and workshops. I also do a little bit of writing, although not as much as I would like to. I also help generate a lot of creative collaterals and social media posts, and for example, infographics and illustrations and videos and podcasts. I also take care of the website and social media handles. But most importantly, I'm also involved in a little bit of capacity building, where I'm able to help scientists and graduate students and other science communication practitioners learn more about how to do effective and evidence-based science communication. Right. So this is the kind of work that I mostly do at Simon Center. My work at Simon Center also made me realize that there is a lot of scope for using more evidence-based ways of doing science communication, for using more research-based sort of insights into improving your science communication practice. But I also realized that a lot of people in India were not really aware about science communication research, or did not really know about that there is a multidisciplinary social science field which allows them to sort of improve their science communication practice. And I was quite motivated to change this. So for that reason, I decided to sort of found the PsychomPsy Club, which stands for the Science of Science Communication. I'm not really going to talk much more about it, but I'll just say that it's a small club. It's a networking forum where science communication enthusiasts sort of come together. There are scientists, there are students, there are practitioners, there are educators, and we all sort of come together once every few weeks, and we talk about research papers in social science about science communication. and how we can sort of improve our science communication practice. Some of the things that we have discussed so far include science communication models, science education, science policy, science art, lots more things. You can read more about us on the website. Right. So this is a few examples of some of the talks that we have hosted. We have also done some mentorship sessions. Shea was involved in one of the sessions we had, where we help science communication practitioners basically sort of reflect on their science communication practice and kind of improve their practice in different ways. We've also been involved in sort of helping create a policy for improving science communication in India, and you can read more about it on our website. Right. Now, to sort of talk about science communication in India, so in the last, science communication in India has been around for at least the last 3 decades, as far as I know. But in the last decade or so, the awareness and acceptance for science communication and the importance of doing science communication has really, really expanded a lot more. There's also a lot more science communicators that are now taking interest in the field. There are also a lot more positions, a lot more salaried, opportunities, and also a lot more workshops and training and capacity building exercises that are now available in the Indian context, right? An important thing about science communication in India that I would like to point out here is that a lot of science communication that happens in rural India is often very need-based. So you often talk about things like energy and agriculture and sanitation and immunization or health. And those are very important because you need to communicate aspects of science which can be applied to people's lives. But there is a dearth of science communication insights and activities and endeavors which talk about science communication for the sake of just raising curiosity in science, right? So there is this need-based science communication that happens, but there's also a scope for having more curiosity-based science communication where you just engage people for the fun of it, or for the sake of engaging them or making them more curious about science, right? So that's something that I feel like in India can improve a lot more. Another thing about science communication in India is that there's a very, very incredible amount of diversity in terms of the socio-cultural context, right? So when you think about scaling up initiatives in India, when you think about the language barriers that changes every few hundred kilometers, you think about pseudoscience and superstitions that abound in India, or you think about the science capital, I mean, the socio-economic, capacities of different people, the kind of audiences you're engaging and the kind of approaches you need to use can vary very, very vastly in India. So it's very important that we understand that, we need to adapt our science communication based on these varying and diversifying socio-cultural contexts of science communication. And a lot of these socio-cultural contexts also intersect. So there's also an element of intersectionality which exists in India, which I think is fascinating for me as someone who's interested in science communication. But it's also a matter of challenge for people who are trying to communicate their science. So I'm just sort of sharing these little insights because I want to convince you that there is a lot of importance in trying to understand these sort of theoretical things about science communication, even when you are trying to do science communication on the field. And then there is a lot of research that you can engage in, right? So some opportunities for capacity building that I have come across. So there are lots of organizations like IndiaBioscience, like DBT, India Alliance, which is also organize institutions like ISO Pune or Bangalore Life Sciences Cluster or TFR or Nature India. So there are loads of organizations which have workshops, which have talks, which have seminars and webinars. And also the kind of activities that the topics that they cover are also very varied. So you will find science communication workshops on science writing, you will find on grant writing, you will find workshops on scientific illustration, you will find workshops on science filmmaking and podcasts. You'll also find workshops on science theater, right? So there are loads and loads of different kinds of aspects of science communication that you can learn. You can find all of these by a simple Google search. Some more resources that I find really incredible and resourceful are the National Federation of Science Journalists and the Association of Science Writers, the Open Notebook, SciDevNet, the American Association for Advancement of Science, and there are lots of competitions like FameLab, Science Slams, Hyper Scientists that also you can sort of engage with, right? So these are some of the resources. The other important thing, if you're trying to be a science communicator or if you already are a science communicator, is that there is an incredible amount of resources available online, and you have to be on social media because there's a lot of resources and opportunities which people share on social media. So as a science communicator, it's really a good idea to sort of start networking on social media, to be present on social media, to not only communicate your science, but also to learn more about the field. and to learn more about opportunities. So I would encourage everybody to sort of think about being active, at least on one or two different forms of social media, whenever possible, to whatever capacity. Right. Before I finish off my presentation, I would like to share some insights or my 2 cents or 2 paise, as I say. So there is, as I said in the beginning of my presentation, it's very important that we don't fall into the trap of, these false dichotomies of this is science and this is art and this is humanities and this is the different thing. Curiosity and our quest for knowledge is not really divided by all of these dichotomies or these compartmentalizations. And it's very important that we kind of approach the entire thing as one goal and not in separate compartments. Right. Right. It's very important that you take a chance on yourself. Sometimes it can be quite scary or quite intimidating to sort of give up a career in academy or to give up a career in research, like I did. And it was scary when I also sort of gave up my career in science. But I think you need to have the courage to take a chance on yourself and to build sort of a portfolio of experiences where you try different things. If you're not sure about committing to something, try doing small things when you can, right? It's very important to tip your toes in multiple ways, right? So you might be really, really focused on clearing this one competitive exam or giving this one entrance exam or passing this particular course. But it's very important that you sort of expose yourself and explore different kinds of things. And often it's very, very difficult to sort of take a decision when you're forced to take a decision. So it's very important that when you have the time and when you're sort of relaxed and in a comfortable position, you start exploring and exposing yourself to different things and dip your toes in multiple wells, right? As I said, it's very important to build a portfolio of different experiences, not just outputs and work experiences, but also life experiences. Such a portfolio of experiences is very important for gaining perspective about what you want to do, whether you're good at something, whether you like something, whether you will excel at something, or whether you will learn more and doing something. And once you get this perspective, you're also in a much better position to sort of judge the viability of what you want to do professionally. So when I started off my journey as a science communicator, I wasn't at all sure whether I wanted to do something, but only by choosing to expose myself to different things, I was able to decide on what I wanted to do. Lastly, it's very important that you network with people. Network with people, not just with people in your field, people who are sort of senior to you in the same field, but also network with people who are in completely different fields, because you never know what's going to expose you to what kind of opportunities. So networking is very, very crucial, and it can land you appropriate jobs. It can give you new skills, and it can also sort of help you advance your career in ways that you may not even think about. Lastly, it's very important to have mentors. And when I say mentorship, it's not just people in the same field who are senior to you. It's also important to have mentors with colleagues who are at the same level as you, but also mentor other people, because you learn a lot by mentoring other people also. I've been in a position where I've been mentored and I've also mentored other people. And I think I've learned equally from both these experiences. So with that, I'll sort of finish off my presentation by saying that a world of possibilities seems to be waiting for us out there, in comforting patience, in silent anticipation, in great expectation, but only if we choose to explore them, right? With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Siddharth. I guess that was a wonderful presentation, and I can say for sure that where there is a will, there is a way. You've really beautifully carved your, journey and shared it here with the audience. Thank you. So I guess, audience, we would take a few questions here. I know we are running a little, not little, over time, but I hope that both the speakers, Siddharth and Shivani, would be okay to take up questions. So if I can request them to unmute themselves and maybe turn on their videos, I'll just ask few questions, and then we would move to the end part. So Shivani, the first question is for you from Siddhi Rathi. So she basically has thanked you for an amazing presentation, and she wants to know if you took any particular course for your transition into the field of science communication, and how best you can prepare yourself for that role.
So I think I already responded in the chat box, but long story short, I can just summarize it. Basically, I didn't take any courses. It was learning on the job for me. and just following, getting to know what the client wants and delivering the best possible, outcome. So that was all on the job for me. There were no specific courses or training.
Okay. Okay. Shantala, if I can request you, I'm really sorry, if I can request you to please share something on the window here so that I can look at the questions. There's some issue with my system and I'm not able to open the question box.
Did I understand correctly
Yes,
that?
yes, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Okay. So there's a little different question from Joseph that he had asked in the very beginning. And this may be, Siddharth, if you want to take this, that how do we start a science communication program in an institution? I understand an academic institution that does not have one. What would be your input for that?
If I could ask for a clarification, is this a science communication teaching sort of course, or is it to sort of communicate science
I
in
guess
that sense?
it's a generic question, and if
Right.
I've understood it correctly, this is a science communication program. So I'm sure it all depends on individual how much they want to bring into that program.
Right. So I mean, I think I'll answer both very shortly. So if you're trying to communicate science, the first thing that you need to understand is that who are your audiences, what are you trying to communicate, right? So you need to figure out what is your message, who are your audiences, why are you communicating, and the most important thing is why is your audience interested in hearing from you, right? So you might be really, really excited about sharing your science, but nobody might be interested. I mean, it sounds harsh, but it's very important that you find a sort of a balance between what people want to listen, what would be useful to them, and what you want to share and where you can help them, right? So I think sort of finding a balance between these things is the most important thing. Social media, I think, how do you start a program? I think social media is the easiest, although it is a bubble in many ways. But I think to start, I think it's a great place to sort of dip your toes and understand who are you trying to, who your audience is, right? So I would say start on social media and see what your audiences want.
Okay. Okay. Maybe Siddharth, one more question to you. This is by Sneha Dikshit, and she says that she's a fresh graduate who wants to learn more about science communication and explore a career in this field. So she wants to know if you can recommend specific master courses for this.
Right. There are a lot of master's courses outside India. In India, there are very, very few, and I don't think I can speak to their quality because I haven't really attended or seen their curriculum. So I'm really doubtful whether they would be really helpful. But there are multiple master's courses. So University of Edinburgh, obviously one. Imperial College London is one. University of Manchester, University of West of England, UWE Bristol. There is a course in New Zealand, University of Otago. There are a couple of courses in the US also. Most of the big universities, Harvard, Stanford, they all have courses on science journalism, science art, or science communication in general.
Okay.
And most of these, last thing, most of these places sort of focus on different aspects of science communication. So some of them focus on science journalism, some of them more on media and mass communication. So it would really depend on what kind of specification or specialization you want in science communication. Thanks.
Okay, and just I would like to add here for the ease of the audience, the presentation also had really good amount of information, if not directly about the programs or educational programs, but there's a lot of information, and we will make these presentations available pretty shortly. So the audience can also get the information that was shared by the speakers through these video recordings. Okay, another question open to both Siddharth and Shivani. Is it important to have a PhD before pursuing a career in science communication?
Maybe I'll go first. I'll share my
Okay.
2 bits here. I realize now, right, today that that degree that I have, I have a PhD in immunology, but what I work on today has possibly nothing to do with immunology. I work in all kinds of fields, and I'm able to, find solutions for every field. But that ability, really, that skill set came, I've learned it through my PhD years, through my postdocing years. And if I didn't have that degree, I'm not sure I could really do what I do today. So it's not really about the subject, it's more about the learnings and the experience. So that's my two bits. Siddharth, anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I would disagree that having a PhD is important because I don't have a PhD, and
Exactly.
funnily enough, I'm looking for a PhD in science communication. So I've had all of these experiences, and I've learned, and I've sort of made up my mind that I want to do this, and I also have a lot of insights and sort of experiences where which I can apply in my PhD. So I think having a PhD before and after can both be equally, and not having a PhD also could be an option, right? So I don't
So
think you
that
need
you
a
had a
PhD
good
to,
opportunity to get that master's in science
uh,
communication. I
yeah,
have no training in science communication. I come
I
from
get that. I get that.
very different field, very different background. But there's several ways, I guess, to get to the same path.
Yes.
So
Sure,
Yes.
absolutely. And there's no correct way. I mean, it really
correct,
depends on what your
correct.
interests and inclinations are. So
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and also will, I really feel that the will factor is really really critical to help you reach your goals. So okay, next question is for Shivani. Again, it's a question related to your past career and how much that helped in making this transition smoother, and do you get imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many times a week we would probably talk amongst ourselves and say, "Oh, this I'm such a fraud. I'm doing this," but really, I don't think that's true because whatever, yeah, I often don't understand that physics paper that I'm working on, or I don't understand the chemistry stuff that that my team is working on, and we're all trying to make crack at it and come out to the right answer. But in reality, once you know how to break down a paper, it could be any subject in any field. It might take you longer. You might have to research some before you understand. Uh, those skills, that's a skill that I've learned through my PhD. Okay, that's the skill
Right.
that I've picked up from there. But other than that, I think anyone can do it. It's a matter of dedication, it's a matter of will. And yeah, it doesn't matter what your subject is. So there is a way to do it, and there is a way to get it right. You just have to keep, you have to be patient, perseverant, you have to have passion. Those are my three P's.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Siddharth.
yeah, I just want to quickly add that because I sort of left a career in research, and most of my colleagues and friends are actually almost done with their PhDs or doing a postdoc right now. It was quite difficult for me also to sort of feel that I'm not doing a PhD, and I might be a failure, and what am I doing with my life? It's completely normal to feel that, but keep persevering and keep looking at your resume or CV, as Shantala and Shreya today pointed out, and that might help actually.
Exactly. Okay. Maybe a couple of more questions I would take. Yuv Shankar wants to, get some inputs to become a science journalist. And also, there is another question from an anonymous attendee about scope for interning for a science journal where they could write articles, and if yes, how do you go about it? So these are, I hope the questions are clear. Siddharth, and then Shivani, maybe if you want to add.
Yeah. So particular things about science journalism first. I think the best way to start ahead is to read, write, and practice. I mean, there is no substitute to hard work. So start reading a lot of popular science articles versus research articles. See what is the difference. There are a ton of resources available on the internet, from Coursera courses to degrees to even free websites and YouTube videos and podcasts. So there is no dearth of resources. But I would say the most important thing is to read, write, and practice. Also, sort of once you start doing this, and maybe you could write for IndiaBioscience, start pitching to people. See if what you think is important is actually considered important by other people. Start getting perspectives from people who have been in the field for a while now. That's what even I did. I actually worked with a couple of science journalists, and I basically shadowed them for a while to sort of get a sense of what I wanted to do. And I still don't think I'm good enough, right? By the way, so I think practice in reading writing is very important. What was the second question, Smita, about skill sets required, right?
This is about interning. No, this is about interning for any science, let's
Right.
say, journal. Uh,
So there are a lot of internships available in science outlets or science media houses, but sadly they are very, very restricted, very limited, and there are only a very few opportunities. So also other science communication internships in universities like NCBS is also very, very short. I mean, very, very brief. So you'll probably have 2 or 3 people who get these internships. So I would say that you could start doing something on your own on the internet, write a blog, start sharing things. There are a couple of people who have their own blog posts, and they write regularly. And once they get some practice, they start pitching to journals like Wire or India Bioscience or other outlets, and they subsequently build up. So there is no right way, of course, but practice.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I agree. There's nothing more I want to add. I think that's covered it really well.
Okay, maybe Siddharth, this is a little, I guess, burning question. This is for you. In what way science communication better from research, and what made you, shift your path after being at IIC? I have also been asked this question multiple times, but this
Right.
is more with respect to science communication.
I think I partly answered this in my presentation that I was really
I know.
interested in humanities and science both. And I didn't, the thing that I did not mention was that after I left humanities and started differentiating into science, a bachelor's and, more courses and research experiences, I sort of missed the engagement with humanities and social sciences that I had. And I was always thinking of, getting back to it. So in college, I kept, writing for my college magazine. I kept doing theater. I kept doing a lot of other things, which was sort of more aligned with humanities. And I kept my connection alive by these small, small things. But I still felt like I was not happy. And after sort of working in research, I worked in a research lab for about 2 years, approximately, all put together. And I realized that I wasn't really happy. I thought research career was something I really wanted to do, and I was really good at it. Let me clarify that, because I wasn't sure I was, but in retrospect, I think I was good enough. But I realized that I did not really enjoy the kind of thrills that I was getting in a research lab. And so coming to science communication had 2 reasons basically. One, it allowed me to engage with sciences which were much more broader. I was not restricted to one super specialized field of biology that I was researching. I could actually engage with physics, chemistry, and also draw connections between science, humanities, social sciences, art. So it allowed me to, sort of explore the breadth of sciences much more, and of society, I would say, much more. And the other thing is that I really found that I was much more happier doing it. Once I started doing it, I was miserable when I was working in a research lab. Right? So I realized that after I started working as a science communicator, I was so much more happier. I had so many more friends. I was doing so much more amazing stuff, and I just felt healthy and happy. I think, and that's a good enough reason, I think.
Yes, thanks. So, one last question before we move to the final announcements, and this is for Shivani. Shivani, do you feel there are opportunities for science communication in regional languages? Why I asked is this is something really, really important if we want to penetrate deeper into it. So, if you can shed some light about, on opportunities in regional languages.
So I'll tell you, we don't do much regional languages work. So for us, that it's very limited. When you think about regional languages, it's limited to certain parts within India. There are opportunities, and yes, we're often looking out. We had a recent client where we were looking out for translating our scripts into 30 different languages in India. So this was all there, but getting it done is easier said than done, right? So say I'm good at Gujarati, I can write Gujarati, but it's not enough. There's no way for me to actually communicate that out in Gujarati. And the opportunities where somebody would want that are also very limited and restricted. But yes, it's a very important and valid question. And yes, down the road, this is going to become critical because as India grows, as science in India grows, these things are going to be needed. And yes, if you're good with languages, you should definitely use your skills to communicate science.
Great. So, okay. So here we come to the end of the question and answer session. Let me thank both the speakers. It's been a wonderful session today. I again say that we have overshoot the time, but I guess the discussion, the presentations, and the questions were something that we could not have skipped. The questions that have not been answered, we will make sure that it goes to the panelists, to the speakers. And if we could get the answers, we would definitely bring it back to the audience. But also you have the contact email IDs of both the speakers. So I hope that speakers would not mind answering the questions if someone approaches to them directly. Okay, so thanks a lot. Thanks very much. And before we end, we promised that there would be few announcements. Before I actually go on to the actual announcement, we would also share from IndiaBioscience some of the career resources that we have been building over time. You can go to the career resource section of the website. There are a lot of interesting talks, the previous career sessions, wonderful resources which are all out there for you to make best use of those. We also did a book called Disha, which is a very comprehensive book talking about various different science career opportunities for life science graduates. So please make use of that. We also have a podcast series called India Bio Speaks, where we have been talking to we have been talking to people who have carved their niche in various different career paths. So these are more in informational style interviews where you gather more information about the careers. So please do check out our podcast series as well. Again, it's all available on the website. I understand the links will be shared with all of you. Okay, so here comes the announcement. We just put together a book called Means to a Beginning, which is the funding opportunities for PhD students and postdocs. This is a project that was on our minds for long, but we put it together under the lockdown, where each one of us were working remotely. And I would like to thank my colleague Manjula, who was spearheading this particular project, and it has come to life. And here this booklet is for you to freely download from the website. Again, the link is right out there. So very briefly, I would say that this booklet focuses on funding opportunities that are available for PhDs and postdocs. And many of you are still not reached that stage, but if you're looking for these fellowship options for travel or skill building awards, it's all out there. The main aim is to highlight the requirements for each of these opportunities, the benefits, the timelines, and the relevant links to the funding bodies. So please do check it out, share it widely, and I hope that this would be something that all of you would find it very, very useful. And I would again say that this has been a project driven by Manjula, but the entire team pitched in, and here we are with this. So can we have the next slide, Shantala? Yes, and as we have always asked, we would like to get your feedback about our sessions. About if you have anything else to share, or give us inputs, please, I would request that each one of you fill in the feedback form. The link has been shared, and we will soon have our next Crafting Your Career workshop. So do save in your spot, and stay safe in this very challenging times. Please keep yourself and your near and dear ones safe, and stay engaged with us. So with that, thank you once again, and I hope that you all enjoyed this session very much. And I would also like to end here saying that we really missed Lakshmi, who's been an integral part of Crafting Your Career sessions today, with us here. Yeah. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you soon. Thanks.